Hey everyone, welcome back to the 100th episode edition of the MatchNet podcast. Yeah! Woo! We have a special guest today who joined me on the very first episode. Yana, it is good to have you. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks. It's nice to be here and I'm excited. 100 episodes. That's awesome. I'm kind of mind blown. Like I still remember when you're like, I think we should start a podcast. But I
Yep.
kind of also like, when was that? I don't remember. What year was it?
I think 2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Oh my
End of
gosh.
2020, perhaps. Maybe
Yeah,
our
yeah.
listeners know better than we do. We have a lot of things to talk about, to catch up on. Yana and I have not seen each other in about a year, or,
Yeah.
or talked in about a year. She has some life updates to get us through, which are going to be announced for the first time here publicly.
On the podcast.
And no, she's not having quadruplets, if you're wondering.
Yeah, that's true. People often think life updates another baby. Yep.
And
That's true.
yeah, but this is just going to be a fun episode. I want us to get into gratitude points for not just so, a lot of people, when we do 100th episodes, I've seen a few, they usually go into how amazing we are and how impactful our mission has been. And it's not really about us, but we want to just show appreciation and gratitude to the elements and people in our lives that have taken us very far and taken this ministry very far. So stick around for that. But also, Yana and I are just kind of catching up here as we do this live. So this will be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we have? What is up with you, Yana? What's new with you?
Well, many people may not know my family, we moved to Denver, Colorado over
Oh,
the summer.
oh no.
It's been fun to get reaction. I'm gonna call out a few friends here who I was trying to get them to visit me in Jersey, but when they heard I was moving to Denver, they're like, "Hey, I'll visit you,"
No.
because it's on their destination list.
Sure.
But yeah, we've been having a really great time adjusting here. It's a good pace. Okay, we're
Mhm.
Norwegian, especially my sons, they call themselves always Norwegian. They really miss the mountains. They love the environment here. They're looking forward to the snow. So that's
Yeah.
it feels like a nice middle way, like being in the US still, but a little bit of the Norway vibes here. The community too reminds me of the Oslo community in some ways, in
Okay.
size and certain
Interesting.
things. So it feels very like full circle, which is
I
interesting because we
have to
moved to
point out,
America in
I
2020
I need
from
to
Norway.
stop you right now and point out the fact that you literally right before we recorded said that you were sick for a few weeks because of the
I have
altitude.
to add that part.
And then when we started recording, you said, we've been adjusting well to our new life. And no, no, you have not been.
I know I got hit, and it's so funny because I've been here a lot. I think anybody that did STF or GPA, you've been
No.
to Colorado, but I got wiped out for like 2 weeks, almost three, because of I think altitude sickness and
Colorado,
adjusting.
mile high state of
Yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah. So that was a rough start, but also good, I guess, to like slow down. And
Yeah.
I think, because I was the only one who was affected by the family, I think it was just I had a weak immune system from moving and all those things. It's a lot.
Sure.
But
That's
but
great.
yeah, we've been
I'm happy
adjusting
for you.
well now.
Happy for you, Yana. I am so, so happy for you. I just, people can tell if they are watching my face that I have an allergic reaction to everything Colorado. And it's an ongoing thing in my life. People that know me
Really? They
well,
go there?
I didn't tell you this to you already, but there's an ongoing joke that I bash Colorado every
Really?
chance I get. Like it's
Okay, where did that start though?
nonstop. It's
Nonstop.
I lived in Denver for 6 months when I was a teenager, right? I lived in the Denver center.
Oh,
It actually stems from a desire I have to give equality and equal marketing and promotion to all the states in America. Because when people think of America, the place to go, where's the action happening, they immediately go to Colorado, okay? Which is great. Colorado is a beautiful state. I have nothing against it. But I have to counterbalance. It's about
that's true.
counterbalancing. Okay.
That's true.
But anytime anyone is like, everyone's like, oh, let's go to Colorado. It's the great place to go. I always have to push back a little bit just to counterbalance and say, hey, did you know that Colorado has a lot of problems and you can find happiness and amazing people anywhere in
True.
the world? Does that make sense?
It does. And it's very you, Benji. I
Yeah.
think that's something I appreciate about you and working with you is you push back on ideas like, okay, but is that, there's other places and things. And it's true. And there's a lot of things I was saying also like New Jersey. I said it to everyone, New Jersey really won my heart. I really like Jersey in a lot of places that
Yeah.
people don't get unless you've lived there, It's kind
Mhm.
of like this fun secret to it. But definitely our family enjoys moving. We've moved a lot. I've moved a lot growing up and being in new environments and new
Yeah.
phases. So it's nice to be able to experience too all the different parts of America for people if they can, have that ability. Um, yeah, which
Yeah.
I'm grateful for. But it's good. We need that. We
I'm
need we
happy for
need to
you.
counterbalance things. We really do.
It's
And
just
you were always a go-to person. I would like, okay, what is Benji's insight here? Because you come with that counter perspective, which
contrarian. I'm a
helps.
100% contrarian. Like as soon as I notice everyone trending towards one thing, I will just
You're like,
start
why?
bashing on. I don't know what it is. It's like an intuitive thing I have where I'm just like, no, Colorado's the worst, and I'll have all these points. I do have legit points. Like
Oh, really?
I took my family there a few years ago to visit,
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah.
and some families we know there, and we were playing in the playground by the church. Beautiful church building. We have a family fed church, beautiful playground right next to it, right? They spent like something over $1 million making this enormous playground. It's
Oh.
like it's a wild playground, right? And my kids were there playing, and then there was this couple smoking weed
Oh,
like
no.
in the playground. And I was like what is going, like this is unacceptable human behavior in any part of North Carolina. If this was in my state, we'd be like get out of here. Like what are you guys doing? But this is normal human behavior in the state of Colorado. All right. And I always like to pick fun. Like there was my wife says there were 2 times in her whole life that she was flipped off while driving. And both of those times were in Colorado. And
Yeah.
it was just by chance. She was, anyways, she got the middle finger from a middle school kid in a bus because we were driving
Oh.
somewhere in Denver from the airport. And she was looking, my wife was looking at into the school bus, and she was like, oh, look, cute little kids. And then one of the kids flipped her off. And she was
Oh,
traumatized from that Colorado experience. Anywho,
yeah. It's funny though. I think
we can,
I see some similarities with Jersey and Colorado. You both named crazy driving,
yeah. No, but
people
I
smoking
like New
weed.
Jersey too. I have good things to say about New Jersey. Although most people will say don't live in New Jersey. I actually really I miss New Jersey quite a bit as well.
See, that's something I've noticed when I would talk with people who lived in New Jersey. That's often their response. I miss living there. But
Mm,
only people who live there really get it, right?
yeah.
There's some convenience. And the food, man. Some good
Mhm.
food.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
spoiled.
let's go away from USA centric conversation
Yes,
for a
let's go.
second, because
Gratitude.
I think most of our listeners, or a lot of them, are non-USA people. So, gratitude points. Yeah. Anything else to update us on in your life, Yana?
Um, Not really. I still like supporting in different ways, BFM. I also working a lot with my business, which I love. And so I
Cool.
think a lot of people know that. They follow me here and there, but it's a nice way to connect. And
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
anyway, just overall, my life feels very full circle. It's very interesting and a
Mm,
lot of God's love in little details. So I was happy when you said like the topic would be gratitude. I
mm,
feel like, yes, that's one of my favorite things we're
yeah.
grateful for.
Well, let's start us off. I want to mention for our viewers that have been noticing that I'm drinking a Rockstar energy drink, and I feel a need to say that I never ever drink Rockstar energy, and I don't condone drinking this stuff. It's the worst stuff. But
I don't know what it is, but I'm
it's the
learning.
energy drink thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they were giving them out here at the place that I work, the co-working space. and I just thought I would grab one for the podcast today. But I just had to say that just in case people are watching me and like,
If
why is
you
he
like,
drinking?
Benji likes those drinks.
It's
Yeah.
it's just
No.
like something that's uncharacteristic of me to drink. So I just wanted to mention that, and I'm insecure like that. So thank you. Okay, so Yana, why don't you give us your first gratitude point? Yeah.
Well, I think the very first thing that popped in my mind, also when you sent me the message, this was going to be the topic, was something I was sharing actually with a few people when I was saying goodbye in Jersey. It was like, if you know the movie, I think it's the movie Hook or Peter Pan, where they talk about happy thoughts. Like, what are your happy thoughts? And they're things in that movie, it helps you fly or makes you good. But I really, people are my happy thoughts. Like, randomly, like often when I'm driving or thinking, I'll think of people and just be so happy, like to know they exist in the world and what they're doing. And it makes me so happy. And I feel like that's something I'm over and over so grateful, honored. Part of the thing of like moving and living in many places is we've got to meet so many incredible people, hear their stories, people share their stories. I like to ask, BFM has just magnified that, this podcast, so many things. And I'm grateful for people like you, Benji, our team, Karina, Christian, Ajay, like there's Uncle John, all these people come to mind, Crescentia, that are part of like my experience in BFM, and I just think like, and as well as like just a lot of blessed families. Like that's often what it is I'll think of different blessed families, even those of you who are in the matching process, been searching for a while and just not giving up. And like, it's so moving. And I feel like so lucky to know so many people's stories. And just on that topic, I don't know, this is kind of like a random segue story, but hey, we could do that. That's how I am anyway.
Mhm.
Like, oh gosh, I forget. This is like way back, like 2008, when True Parents were doing a lot of speaking tours. And True Mother and Hyojinim, they came to Tanzania, which is where my family was living at the time. I
Yeah.
was visiting on break from STF. And my mother, because she'd been a missionary for so many years, she got an opportunity to meet with True Mother, like one-on-one. And it was like late at night. And so I remember waking up in the morning, like, what did she say? What happened? I want to hear. And my mom just said, oh, your mother just asked me to share my story, like my life testimony from missionary to now. And I think I was like 20, 21. I was like, huh? Like, that's so boring. Like, I thought she was going to like, that was my impression. Right. But later I felt, especially I think a lot in working with BFM and getting to hear a lot of deep, stories about people and they're sharing their heart. I felt like, oh my gosh, like that's True Mother. Like that's what she would really love, if she had that time. And in some way, I felt like it's such an honor to be in a role where you get to hear people's stories, like deep things, right, about their life and their decisions and about the blessing, about their families, what they're thinking, the things that are really on their heart. And yeah, I just added that story from my mom, like understanding that perspective later and like, wow, it's such an honor to be in this work. And I know, Benji, you also hear like just that we get to share and support and work with so many people. And
Mm.
in some way I felt like, yeah, True Mother would love that if she could, right? But she
No.
obviously has a lot of other big things that's not always possible, but I felt it's such an honor anyway. And that's um the first kind of thing that popped in my mind on
Yeah,
what I'm grateful for, that like,
it's amazing.
yeah, the happy thoughts, my fuel is really from these relationships and just all of you out there. Like, it's amazing you exist and you're in the world. I feel like that's how God feels about us, right? Like, you're so great, like just the fact that you exist, so that's very real. You're my happy thoughts, people that I've met and continue to meet and know, and inspired by your journey, especially like all of it, the trying, the challenges, the keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Anna. Mm. Wow. That's nice to know that you are thinking about everybody in such a way all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even like, I don't even feel like it's thinking about, I feel it's like people pop into my thoughts and then I become so happy. you know? It's kind of like you guys just pop in with thoughts in some ways. But yeah, when you know people and they're like, it's very real. It's not just like, you know, oh, I wonder about them, but because I know about them, I know the things they're doing, it just gets me thinking like, wow, I'm just so grateful they exist.
Yeah.
They're helping the world in, just so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Man, thank you. It brings a lot of gratitude points to me as well.
Yeah. I just like, whoop,
Really
there's a
hard
lot in
to,
there.
yeah, it's really hard to, I think for context, it's important for people to know a bit about my story of why I'm here.
Yeah.
And I think that'll help illustrate some gratitude points more and why I feel this way. So exactly 10 years ago. So 2014, I was 21 years old, and I had, at the time, I was working in I was working
Mhm.
in Japan and just started living with Hitoe, my wife. We had just gotten pregnant, uh, and it was a very stressful time of our relationship and of our life, just in general. It was the first
Yeah.
time that we were kind of living on our own. We were blessed for like 4 years or something at the time, but it was the first time we were living on our own in our own place. And she was pregnant. I was looking for a job. Uh, a backstory is I was a matching supporter at the time for like 3 years or something like that. I became a matching supporter as soon as I could after I got blessed. So I was blessed at 18, and then I think I was 19 years old when I was like, hey, I want to be a matching supporter. And so I went to matching supporter training in New York. And then I, at some point, sent a letter to the BFM admin team saying, because I loved the BFM matching sporter team. Like I was just moved at how selfless they are and how they just work so hard to match people. And it's their joy to volunteer their time and energy to spend so much of their time to help people get matched. And I was so moved by the group of people. I was like, hey,
Mhm.
and then I emailed the admin. I didn't even know who was on the other side of the email, but I just said, hey, if you ever, have a job opening, like an internship or something like that, I'd be interested to work with you guys because I love what you do. And then so that was, when I was like 19, and then like what is it, 3 years later or something, uh, I was living in Japan with my wife, pregnant, back to that story. And I had gotten a job at a hospital in Tokyo, working at a hospital. And the whole plan was to live there eternally in Japan. That was the whole plan. And as we know,
Yeah.
plans don't work out as you plan.
Yeah.
They're not even plans, really. They're just life
That's a
unfolds.
next step. We'll call it that.
Yeah,
Next
there's
steps.
no plan really. And then so I had this job lined up working in a hospital. And then I got an email from Crescentia, Crescentia Degoti. And she said, hey, so this is like 3 years later. I sent that email. She's like, hey,
3 years later.
we got your email and we have a job opening for,
I'm just laughing because I know how I've done that to
yeah.
people. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of emails you get.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I didn't hear something, but I just said, hey, if you have anything. And then turns out they did 3 years later. And I was like, holy geez, like
Same
this
time.
is
The
real. Is
timing.
this a real, opportunity? And I was like, are you gonna actually pay me? Because I'm gonna have to move to New York, right? And she's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to move to New York, New Jersey area, and we want you to start immediately,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And I was like, oh shoot, like I want to do it, but I got to talk to my wife who's pregnant and is living in Japan. So we weren't planning to go to America. So we didn't have any of the green card stuff figured out. So I would have to go beforehand,
Oh, yeah.
leave my pregnant wife. And so I went to her and I was like, what do you think? And she said, of course you're gonna.
Oh,
That's what she
he's
said.
always amazing.
She wasn't even like, oh, like let me. This is going to be hard. She was like, almost like you're stupid for even thinking about this, like that. She was like, of
Well, Hitoe, that's amazing. Being pregnant and that's not easy, but that immediate response, yeah, wow.
And the reason is because she is someone that is 100% the external doesn't matter as much as the internal. As much as the internal. And I know when I say that, people say, oh, yes, external does matter. Yeah, it does, but not nearly as
Internal
much.
priority.
She's like,
Yeah.
of course you're going to do this. Like, what what else are you going to do with your life? That's what she said. She's like, what better thing can you do with your life than help people
Good question.
communicate about the blessing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, first of all, I guess in the story arc that was 10 years ago, I'm grateful for spirit world and God for working some weirdness that allowed this opportunity for me to eventually go down this road and make teaching about the blessing and living a blessed life my kind of calling in life.
Mm.
And to Hitue for who was just like without blinking an eye was like, yeah, you're gonna do this, which implied a lot of implications there that we had to leave Japan, leave our opportunities there. I had to leave my wife while she was pregnant, and then kind of go back. I had to go back and forth to Japan to
Yeah.
for the birth, and then eventually bring them back to the States when the green card came through. So yeah, I have more gratitude points, but I'm going to leave that there and then pass it back to you before I get to those ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing story. I'm glad you shared that. I don't think you shared that on the podcast before, right?
Mm.
It's nice for people to know
Hmm.
you started. And yeah. And just that how much you've seen, in those 10 years in the BFM and context for things, right? You're able to bring a lot of that into the podcast too, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, I think one gratitude point I was just thinking directly about Mention It podcast as a resource. Like, I think it was just last week I found two episodes that I was sending someone on, like, I didn't even they were episodes that I hadn't seen or heard before. I was looking on YouTube, so I searched up. But just like the title, right? Like they were struggling with this, and right away the title popped up and I was like, ooh, and it wasn't just like one. I was like, oh, if I find one, it was like three,
Mm.
about like being open and inviting God into the process. And I'm just so grateful for this resource. I think a lot of people are. In general, I think BFM, we have so many resources, and I feel like being involved and working so much in it, I'm able to like pull up things when I need to like support people in that network. But yeah, I do feel it's really incredible, this culture we created. And I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before, but when I moved from Norway, because a lot of us moving from Jersey reminded me of things with moving from Norway. One of my friends who I was kind of sharing about divine principle with and the autobiographies gave True Mother and True Father's autobiographies. I gave her a little like uh, kind of the blessing prayer and the holy candle as I was going, and I was kind of explaining like, yeah, this is why I'm moving and the job I'm going to be doing that's like helping couples in their marriage and preparing for marriage. And she just started to cry. Sad that I was leaving, but also she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that something like this exists. Your church takes care of families. And I was like, wow. She was also pregnant. So it was a
Mhm.
lot of those emotions, but
Mm.
it just moved me like how she kind of sensed just like what you were describing too, Benji, like this sense of like it's a very selfless energy around this role that really purely exists to support families and couples and preparing for marriage, and just that like for her just the knowledge that something like that existed in the world was so like moving, especially as she was preparing to have her son and their family and growing. So it was yeah, again, I guess those are all the things I'm grateful for, that
Yeah.
just by default, I feel like just sharing, like people ask, what do you do? Right. And it's so moving. It evokes a lot of stories and conversations. Yeah, that kind of goes back to my other gratitude point. I guess I love to connect everything, right,
It's
in one
needed. Yeah.
bubble. But yeah, but I mean, I think I just genuinely feel like we have some of the best resources ever because they've come from these places of really learning and listening and trying to improve, right? And we learn from everyone's stories and situations. And that's why, yeah, we have this like wealth of information, experiences, wisdom we can tap into to share with others, right? As they're going in different stages. their journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I hope it is helpful. You know, we try to speak directly to the heart and struggles and aspirations of the people that we're trying to serve, right?
Yeah.
So it's good that it is. So I would say, yeah, when I started working as a 21-year-old who had a lot of insecurities, and here's the thing about me, guys, like I say this often, and I wonder if people actually believe me. I am quite a timid person, introverted and insecure. Uh, and I'm not like a super confident. I know exactly. There are certain things that I'm very confident and convicted in, and that's based on years of blood, sweat, and tears. Like, to be frank,
Mm-hmm.
just like I'm 100% convicted in certain things, but a lot of stuff I'm really just trying to figure out, as I go, as we all are.
Yeah.
And so I say that because I don't want people feeling like I know everything, even though I might act or sound like I do. But it's really like I'm only able to like teach and give content because I have been an observer for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So until I started BFM, I was like the youngest of every group I ever was a part of. I'm the youngest brother in our family. I was the youngest in my age group of like BC, second gen in our area. Every camp I went to, I was one of the youngest.
Hmm.
And I've always been very shy and hesitant to speak up because I was the youngest, because I always felt like I don't have any position to share. I have no position to teach. And so I think because I have that experience by nature of that, I've been very observant of people. I'm very observant of culture. I'm very observant of how things are portrayed or how things are perceived by others. And also because of my introverted nature, I'm always watching people. I'm the kid on the playground that's just watching everybody.
Yeah.
And I know introverted people that have introverted tendencies understand what I'm talking about, just like watching. And then some kid comes up to you and is like, "Hey, you want to play?" And I'm like, I don't know. you know,
Yes.
'cause
All
kids
three of
are,
my sons are like
yeah, yeah, I know they
on
are.
the
I know they
playground.
are.
Yeah.
Those kids are like, "You want to be my friend?" Like I was so allergic to those kids. I'm like, I no, I not really. But I didn't know how to say it. So I just like play around, play along. But yeah, I was that kid who just like hide under the playground and just like watch all the kids
Watch everyone.
and
Yes.
just imagine like scenarios in my head of like, anyways. So I say that for context because uh, I'm really truly grateful for the listeners. Mm,
Yeah. Good.
yeah,
Yeah.
the listeners, especially in my conversations, especially the young dudes that
Mm-hmm.
I get to work with and mentor a lot, because they are the ones that, from what I've observed, are listening the closest. And I could name a few dozen right now, but I don't want to point them out, that are listening to every episode that we put out
Mm.
and taking to heart everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Putting it into practice, like listening and applying.
like these are like these young dudes are, they're stellar people. Like they're the ones that are going to be the leaders of the future.
I do.
And yeah, and I'm really grateful that they're the ones that are giving the attention and time to listen to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we didn't have the listeners, there's like no point in making this content. But I feel the most fulfillment in knowing that there are people that are recipients to the words that we're speaking, right? And it's also to point the fact that it's not our words. Like
Yeah.
I've battled this myself and feeling like, oh, I can't speak because I need to use more true parents' words, for example. I've gotten that feedback as well. And I felt that too. And I think it's true to an extent. But I think that what my view on this is that we're trying to help give context to true parents' words. Because if you think about what father and mother talk about, why does okay, let me take a step back. This is controversial, but that's why people like this stuff, right? They like controversy. I do not do hundoke.
Mm. True confessions from Benji. You heard it here first.
Let me
Just
explain, right?
keep going, keep going, keep going.
I do not read father's words and mother's words. Okay? Let me explain. Because just my opinion here, when I read father and mother's words, the thing that's going through my head is I already know this.
Ah,
Okay?
interesting. Yeah.
Okay? And
Resonating.
I'm not saying that in an arrogant way. I'm saying that because I've studied this my whole life. I've studied this stuff. And so it's important as context because when you think about why did your father talk so much?
Right.
It's because he was trying to find every angle possible to explain concepts. That's what teachers do. These
Yes.
examples,
Yes.
anecdotes,
Yep.
they try to find every which way possible to explain main concepts. And there are certain main concepts that father and mother have come here to give. And at a certain point, hundoke, the meaning of hundoke is not reading, it's about practicing and discussing and have giving take and sharing with others. And to me, that's what hundoke is you take the concept, not the exact word by word phrasing of it, but you take the concept of give and take action, of God's love, of absolute sex, of all the concepts that we have, the blessing, ideal family, right? The fall.
Yeah.
Concepts and you practice it and you teach it and you share and you have give and take with it. That's hundoke to me, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that is, I mean, you know, Korean, the
yeah.
translation, isn't it about sharing, giving, take on the word?
Yeah. So that's the controversial part is I don't spend much time at all reading True Parents' words. I do if I feel like there's something I need to learn or like there's a concept that I'm struggling with, then I'll go to the word, like I'll go to mother's word and I'll be like, read it. Like, what is she saying? What is she saying here? What is true father saying about this? But at a certain point, it's like you understand the concept and then it becomes less valuable to study it and more valuable to practice it and to teach it and to just talk about it with people. And so in my family, with my kids and with my wife, we don't read hundoke with my kids. I don't. I talk about concepts and we share about concepts and I ask them questions about these concepts we're talking about because that's why there are so many words. There's volumes and volumes of father talking about true love, where if you boil it down, you can boil down everything into a few sentences, right?
Yeah, yeah. But it comes even deeper because of practice. You know, like people can sense when you're talking about something from a concept. That's why stories are powerful, right? You've got stories around true love and family. There's so much of that and learning what it is. And then it comes. But Benji, as you were talking, I was like, I got a quote from you, from your father for you that backs up what you're saying, which is the peace messages. I think in multiple of them, it says like, please inscribe these words on your heart. That quote popped in my mind as you were talking because it is really that. It's like more than like memorization, which is very head level, right? Inscribing in your heart is very like connected, deep relationship through give and take level of what it means, right? Those words. And what's the point of it all, which is what you're sharing, is to put it into practice and apply it and create a better world, like make it reality, right? I find a lot of True Parents words, I'm just so grateful they exist. Like again, you said when you need to study something, you can go and find it. Like just that knowing they exist, this is another happy thought. It's like it's incredible, right? Because we have these concepts we can go to that and really even wrestle with and like what does that mean in reality? That's something I ask a lot, right? What does that mean in practice? What does that look like? Yeah, I think that's so important to like that's their greatest gift of words. 100K is True Parents words is how we are able to like integrate it into our life, right? And really live by it. On this topic, because this was something I was reflecting on this morning, feeling gratitude and things was True Mother, because you're also saying like True Father. I was thinking about that. True Father talks a lot. True Mother is she's very concise. I always felt that I feel like she's probably the one who wrote a lot of these peace messages because they're so concise, like history. And she often, when she talks, she says the same thing. Like she starts with, Adam and Eve, they didn't understand heaven created this incredible world. Adam and Eve didn't understand it. We have the world we have today. Like just reminding us, right? Like God's love. But also I was reflecting a lot on like what is a dream community environment to create, and the way Mother talks about the blessing, like she says, um, please create an environment where everyone can receive the blessing. Key word on receive, because I think a lot of times we talk about how to get all people blessed or save all the people, and I feel like what Mother really in that word, and this is a shout out to Christian because I'm using his words. His words also popped in my mind, probably from another podcast episode, but um, like a dream anyway, any kind of space, workspace, community, family, is one where we create an environment where all of us can take ownership from our original minds, and I felt like that's what an environment for everyone to receive the blessing is. Like that's what we're trying to build, like a world like that where it's not that like we're like saving people or trying to convince people, but it's like all of us have our original mind, God speaking to us there, right? And how are we empowering those choices and decisions, right, to guide us towards a path of, the three blessings, right, and fulfilling. And I just feel we talk a lot about environment, right, and words, and to me, that's like, wow, that's my dream. That's my dream world. Like, you know, um, yeah, off on a tangent, but
Yeah,
that's our,
great.
it just
There's a lot to be
really
grateful
comes to my
for.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff with you because you have such a positive, grateful mindset towards everything.
I really do. Like any
Yeah.
way you look at it, even though there's a lot going on in the world, and 2024, it's been an intense year in many ways, right? But I
Mhm.
feel that still there's so much we can be grateful for.
Yeah.
The world has never been in this place, have true parents, only begotten daughter, like so many things that just, wow, I just feel like God's so happy. Even though there's all this pain, like we've got to go through that pain to heal and create this world. It's not, I mean, that's another part of like really learning what true love is. It's like stretching and growing your heart. It's not that it's all rainbows and butterflies, unicorn, like that, right? It's really like learning through challenges and situations and growing and learning to love in spite of it all and healing. And part of that is opening these wounds and pain that exist and finding a way to heal together.
Sure.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of motherly perspective, motherly heart. Like I really learned that from birth, giving birth 3 times, that you got to just sometimes go through pain to come to a new beginning, a new
Mm.
environment, new world, creating a family. Yeah.
It's the anticipation of the pain that's usually the most.
So true. That's so true. That's
Mm.
really the mental battle.
I can at least speak for dads,
Yes.
but
Being the supporter.
universally true. It's before the delivery that's the most stressful. As soon as like water breaks and baby's coming, everything we're just like,
Oh
let's
man.
we're chill, like we're just calm. But until that day, it's just like insidiously like, oh, make sure I gotta get all the things done on the route to the hospital, right? And this
Yeah.
is what I tell my kids is everything's scary until you do it for the first time.
Yeah.
Then you have your first kid, and then you have your third kid, and it's like every time it's just like, oh yeah, this is
This
old.
is familiar.
But it's the anticipation that's the emotion that is
Yeah.
causing the stress. It's
Yeah.
not the actual thing itself.
True.
So yes, my gratitude point is to our listeners. Thank you guys, especially the young dudes that I have the privilege of mentoring, and young gals as well, but I talk mostly with men through advising and such. Uh, yeah, thank you guys for listening, despite my lack of understanding of true parents' words and using them in quotes.
I don't think you have a lack of understanding. It's a focus on applying them.
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly my own like thinking, like maybe I should do this more. And I've gotten a few comments from people saying I should use more words, but I have just come to terms with I don't think it's important unless it's really true to the content and the teaching that needs to happen. Of course, we can do more of that, but at this point, I think y'all can search for quotes on your own time and this podcast is to help contextualize and practice in real life with stories and that kind of stuff. So thank you guys. Thank you, listeners. I actually had a crazy experience when I went to a workshop in DC at the Washington Times, actually. We're a
Oh,
workshop. And this is like 2 years into the podcast. And then I was talking with a few of the participants and they were like, yeah, I love the podcast. And, oh, and then I had like a dozen people. And then one sister, she's probably listening to this. She said, she's the first time that I met her in person. And she's like, I feel like I know you. I'm like,
yeah.
great, that's wonderful. And then she said, she said, when she listens to the podcast, she's always cooking. She's cutting up stuff and putting them in a pot, right?
Yeah.
And then she said, when I hear your voice in person, I feel like I should be cooking right now.
That's funny.
And then I realized like the podcast for a lot of people have become such a integral part of their daily life. And,
Right. Oh,
and then this immense amount of like gratitude in me came up because it's such a privilege to be able to talk
yep.
about something so important as the blessing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like there's nothing else. There's nothing like that I could talk about more important, and just the fact that it could be meaningful to people is like it's a privilege beyond privilege. It's something that's just immense gratitude for that.
Yeah. It's true. And me being back on for, this one episode, it makes me grateful. Like it's just so fun to talk about the blessing. Like you have a privilege being able to talk about it so much because yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us drawn to BFF enjoy talking about the blessing
Yeah.
but it really is. It's amazing. So grateful that we live at this time, the blessing to be blessed, to support people getting blessed and yeah.
Yeah.
Till the whole world's blessed.
Let me just say, you are the reason this podcast exists.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You were,
2020.
like I was mentioning, since I was 21, my whole life I've been like the younger brother, hesitant to share. And then
Ah,
you were the
yeah.
one that was like, we started the MatchNet
Yeah.
program education course. And then I was like, well, doesn't it make sense to have some kind of dynamic content that we're always
Putting out.
making?
Right.
So we don't just have static content, but it's always making new stuff, right? And so that's where the podcast idea, and you
Came
were like,
from.
yeah, you're like, go for it. Like,
That's true.
I remember your thought on it. You were just like, yeah, why not? Go for it. Like, not even a second hesitation.
Mm.
Me, I'm like, are you sure? Like, am I qualified? Like, are you sure about this? But that was the first time, Yana, that I actually made, I think, content for the internet,
Oh, really?
online stuff. Yeah.
It feels like you've been doing this for so
No,
long.
no, no. It was the first time where
This is our
I mean,
100th
I've been
episode.
giving sermons since I was 16, but the first time where I would
I know.
actually like speak to
Could've-
camera or create podcast content.
Yeah.
And it was
Oh.
hard, nervous at first, but since then it's like, this is my, like, teaching is my passion. Someone asked me
Mhm.
recently, like why I like this, and I just said it's my true passion.
Yeah.
Like a true passion is something that you could try to
Just
squash. You could try
totally.
to start this
It'll
fire,
just
but you
keep.
can't. Like no matter how much I try, I have like 4 podcasts, by the way, and YouTube channels, people that I
Oh.
know about. But I have like this, like this deep passion to teach.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it comes from a a knowing that, like, if I can help somebody in a certain way through experience, like I have a cycling channel, for example, and that's just because that's what I like and enjoy, cycling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like talking about that. And if I can help people in a certain way with, especially with things that I've been through personally, that just gives me so much joy. And so as a result, I'm always thinking about ways to teach and perspectives to share and mentoring people. So that's all from you. Like,
Oh, that's awesome. Or
you're,
it was your idea, but you just a little
yeah,
like
you're just like, yeah, go for
do
it.
it.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's
but
awesome. I didn't realize that, but of course it's been 100 episodes and so it feels like it's been forever. But I really enjoy hearing, the beginning stories and hearing that in context with what you were sharing before about, not being the one to speak, kind of being the observer, and then really leading the podcast. Because like I was just like, the podcast wouldn't exist without you. But I get what you mean. Like that step, it brought out, I'm so happy to hear that. It brought out this passion and love of teaching that's there, but you needed that little, okay, do it.
Yeah.
And then you made it happen.
Well,
And then you kept going.
we're like,
I
we're
think
like,
that's a
why not?
huge thing of podcasts is to keep going though. Because
Yeah.
I know a lot of podcasts that have started, I know it's in the business world, like because it's like a thing, right? And it's fun to do, but keeping it, continuing to go and giving a lot of value to listeners, that's the heart of it all, right?
Mm.
What
Yeah.
were you gonna say? You were gonna say something.
Yeah. Just you were like, yeah, why not? Like that. Kind of like Hitoi was when I said I'm gonna move
Yeah,
to New York to, he's like, yeah,
just do
of
it.
course. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course,
it's a
why
good
not?
idea.
That
That
kind of.
makes sense.
And,
Yeah,
and a lot of times people will say, of course, but then they'll kind of like watch over you, and like
right,
micromanage.
right.
And I never felt that.
Hesitate.
I never
Like
felt,
unsure. No,
yeah.
no. I'm just like, you got this.
And now we're at a point where like, I mean, I can honestly make an episode about anything I want, and then people will share it. It's kind of a dangerous
The
situation.
trust. Yeah.
Yeah, the trust is real, and I really massively appreciate the trust, especially our family fed leadership, a lot of trust in us, the podcast. Right now, it's Karina and I that's basically making the content.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
trust, just to, because I know they're not going to listen to this episode, for example, but it's like, oh yeah, Benji made a podcast, cool, let's share it. Sounds great, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
takes a lot of trust. So I appreciate that very much.
It does. And
Mm.
I just feel like what you were sharing though, it's like it really is what I was saying about, I feel how God, Heavenly Parent feels about us or sees the world. It's like we know we don't trust ourselves enough, our original mind. Like your idea to start the podcast, that feeling, this was coming from this place of your love of teaching and passion for it and your experience and wisdom from working in BFM for so long. God knows that, right? God knows that's in your heart and that seed in your original mind. And I think so many times we discredit ideas that we feel and have, like, oh, why, or why me, or those things. But
Mm.
it's like, if you really feel like, no, that's where Heavenly Parent's talking to you from, that, like, why not you? It has to be you. We need you to do it, right? Like, there's so many things that exist in the world that, like, it's hard to imagine not having the MatchNet podcast. Like, what would I do
The
for
only
my
one.
resources? I said, and it's like,
Still
but
the
it
only
all
one.
started somewhere, the beginning, and it's with God. Like God puts, in our original mind those thoughts, and I think to me that's what I said again. The dream world and society is like we're all uplifted to like follow our original minds. Really, you know, create an environment that supports that, right? Where there's less, because
Yeah.
I think we tend to doubt ourselves the most, and so we don't even just to ask, right? Even just to speak up, like, what do you think of this idea, is really hard. It's really vulnerable, right? Um, but yeah, I think that brings, I feel like Heavenly Parent is grateful for the Match That podcast, the 100th episode, right? And that everyone who supports it, everyone that we've been saying and grateful to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
is a lot of that. That's speaking through us is God. Like, it's like being a channel versus just what do we say, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I think
because
when
we get these experiences.
I think when people hear you share that, they think like, what in them wants to become an idea, manifest, right? And so, do you have any guidance on that? Because it's easy to say, oh yes, the MatchNet podcast was some special anointed, God personally chose this podcast to be the matching and blessing podcast. But it
Right.
literally was us two. They're like, hey, let's do an episode, the first episode that we did,
Yeah.
and just to kind of see where it goes. And so I don't know, like, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I feel really, right. We're all principal individual embodiments of truth. Like, what does that mean, right? Like, the individual way you think about things is an aspect of truth, spirit, all of this that is a part of God. Like we're not, and this is something I'm taking from, shout out to Anissa Kento-san's wife, left from that, they live in Colorado, and she was sharing this, that like we're all God, right? We're all parts of God. God is in us. God speaking through our original mind. And so I think that would be my first thing, is that like don't dissociate it so much. We have a, I think we can be very mean to ourselves inner side, and that's directly from remnants, descendants from the fall, right? This human conflict that exists is just like that mean voice in our head that, like, if you imagine that never existed. So that's one of the first things I think, is like creating that space for your ideas, because so many times we shut them down too soon that we might not even know what it is. But if you start to create that space, I think a lot of us do get like a little bit of a feeling like it just keeps coming up, and then you might be doing something totally, like just reading a book, and then your mind starts thinking of that idea, like it's connecting the people, and that's how you kind of know that there's something in you. But I would say the key thing is and the hard thing, this is where the ownership part is, like it does come from you. Like no one else can quite bring it to the world the way you can, the way that God is working through you, spirit world. There's also a certain spirit world that wants to support you. And I think that comes from a genuine understanding of your value as God's child, and everyone's value. Because I think like we all have a gift. It's not meant for us, right? But it's a gift that's meant to help us as one family, one human family, one family under God, right? So yeah, and but I think the easiest way to have to get clear on that idea is to have give and take with it, like talk about it with someone. Even if it's not like, sometimes like you're like, okay, should we start a pack? Like it feels like, okay, maybe you don't want to talk about it where you have to make a decision, but just brainstorm, talk with someone that you feel comfortable with, like, yeah, this thing, this keeps coming up in my head, and what do you think? And then you get some give and take. Again, I feel Heavenly Parent really works through people, and those conversations. So don't just sit on it in your own mind. Like it's meant to have give and take. otherwise, we usually just shut things down, Yeah. Hope that answers your question. But that's I really I feel like the flip side to it is, if you only are seeking like validation from others on that idea, it will never fully form, because it does have to come from in you. So you can get insight and give and take, and people might say, oh yeah, you could do this and this, but if it doesn't feel like in your gut, like, no, but that's it, but it's not quite it. Like it's almost, but it's not quite, right? Like I'm having the ability to really stay true to it. And yeah.
Yeah.
And that you hear that if you read people's stories. I love reading autobiographies, everything, documentaries. You see that over and over again, right? That I've read the story about Velcro. It's a pretty crazy story how it was invented. And this guy just had this idea, like, we need something to get them to stick together. I mean, I'm kind of butchering the story because I don't, but basically he went to so many people and tried to help them, like scientists, and they all told him it was impossible to build, right? They couldn't figure out how to do it, but he just couldn't let it go. And eventually he did it himself. It took like something crazy, like 20 to 50 years. And then now Velcro is everywhere, especially if you have little kids. Velcro shoes, like, yeah, it was used for the space.
Yeah.
Look it up, Google that story, guys, so you can appreciate the full story. But like that, I mean, can you imagine a world without Velcro, right? Like anything that it came to existence came from that kind of trusting that, and I feel like the more you feel that it's really God talking to you, right? Not just because we belittle ourselves, I guess, a lot, right? But I'm a child of God, right? And I want to help my family with this. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah, a few things I'm hearing. Are you good on time? It's the hour.
Yes.
Okay. So a few things that I'm hearing or perspectives that I think are helpful, at least for me to understand things, is that number one, the manifestation of the idea doesn't have to look a certain way. And what I mean by that is usually we think of ideas as having to be very massive, large scale life, world changing things like a business or a podcast or,
Yeah.
things that we see on social media, basically, or making a bunch of money or anything like that. But if we can exclude that, only looking as idea manifestation as something like that, then we're freed up to actually let the idea manifest in the way that it needs to. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes.
And so an example, and then I'll share the second part of how I'm seeing this and an example. So the second part is that I think that an idea, like the Velcro guy or any really successful leader in some way, has had this kind of itching, burning desire and passion that they can't get rid of, no matter how distracted or busy, or even if they try to squash and put out the fire, they can't put it out. And so an example would be like a musician. If I use this because people can understand, relate to it.
Yeah.
Maybe you know a musician, like a pianist or a guitarist, that they just go like in intense focus, tunnel vision when they're playing their instrument, and they don't care who's watching or who's not watching.
Right. Right.
They
Yeah.
just will like find a piano in the airport and just start jamming on it, and they just don't care. Right?
Yeah.
Or like they'll pick up a guitar and they're just like they don't care. Like that's a passion that you can't put out. And I'm using music as an example, but also it doesn't have to look like that. For me, music actually, like I realized recently in our living room, uh I love playing music, like playing guitar and singing, especially
Yeah.
with my kids and with my wife. And so I'll do that like sometimes in a few hours every day. In the evening, I'll just like pick up a guitar and I'll just start playing and singing songs. And then I always thought like, oh, maybe I should turn this into like a YouTube channel or share this. But then I actually decided against that because it would actually defeat the purpose of this passion for me. It's not to share or it's not to receive validation for. It's actually because I just really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And turning it into a way to receive validation or to get views would actually diminish the desire or the
Yeah.
interest I have and joy I have from this passion I have. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so the example to kind of tie these two things together, which is uh, something that you have a true passion for and something that doesn't have to really manifest in a large way, could be like having a family.
Yep.
Like bringing that back to the blessing and having a blessed family is that is like a desire in each of us innately that we have, that God put there, that even if you try, assuming that you're a healthy minded person, even if you try to squash that desire, we all have it.
Yeah.
And it manifests in the form of just having a family. And for some reason in our society, we diminish the value of just being a family man or a family woman.
So true.
And we think that to be a successful man or a successful woman, our lives have to look a certain way. Our house has to look a certain way.
Yeah.
Our family needs to do X, Y, and Z, go on XYZ travels, needs to make X amount of money, where in reality, in the grand scheme of life in the universe and the spirit world, nothing really matters that much. Those things don't really matter that much. And so I think that, I guess I'm trying to get people away from this idea of my life has to be so meaningful in a very specific way,
Right.
but recognize that the meaning, what's the word, the happy place or the happy
Yeah. Happy thought?
happy thought is that your life is already a freaking miracle in a
Yeah.
innately, because God created that way. And just the fact that you can have relationships, pursue a blessing, and have children and create a blessed family, is that not purpose and mission enough to be satisfied with? Because I can't tell you how many guys and gals I talk with almost daily who are trying to figure out their life mission
Mission.
and
Yeah.
their career path. I'm like, why not just have a blessed family and that be your life mission?
Yeah.
Is there
And
not?
honestly, I think that part of why we can do what we do, again, both of us started after being blessed in the family. I think, again, it's in the three blessings, right? Like a lot of society is the three blessings flipped, where it took a lot of getting people like, what is your thing? The third, bringing to the world, studies is focused on that.
Mhm.
find somebody, and then people have midlife crisis. Like if you just think of society today, it's kind of three blessings backwards. But the original intention of growing ourselves, right, is really about our heart, love, four realms of heart, perspective, spiritual, physical, understanding the way we grow spiritually and physically, pursuing the blessing first, that innate desire that's in all of us, right? That's kind of in how we're designed, right? And family. And then it's through that context that you serve, but also it's like serving as a family. Like it's really, it's having, I think, especially having a spouse, I feel is like, that's where you can make a lot of those decisions. Like you gave the example talking with hsa-uwc, so many things without Alexander, it would just be impossible to try to tackle it on my own, right? We're talking like bigger level things. And I think that gets so diminished in society. It's kind of like not in the context of how we grow and even manifest things and our gifts and offer to the world. It's like that family and school of love is literally the place that fosters these things to come, right? And that looks different for everyone, right? Like you said, but I think that getting that clear on the priority is what's missing because it's not valued, right? It's not, it feels like it's not enough. And overall, just that not enough feeling is the antithesis or the opposite of this really feeling like the desires in your heart are so important and so key, right? How God is propelling you toward an
Mhm.
amazing life, like co-creating an amazing life with you, right? Like God just really wants us to feel a lot of joy, um, and bring a lot of joy, right, to the world. And yeah, but thanks for bringing that up. I feel like you articulated it well. And I was going to point out in your example with the music, the key thing is you were listening to your intuition and feeling, gut feeling about it, right? That this is a gift to just enjoy as a family because you enjoy it.
Mm.
So that's one takeaway. Like if you really listen and trust your intuition as God's voice there, your original mind, it will help steer you in a lot of those decisions.
Mm. Yeah. What is your true passion?
Oh man, it's probably this what we're talking about, like
Mm.
strengthening people's trust in their intuition. I really care about that, um, in the form. But yeah, I love supporting people with the blessing. I love environment, supporting people in their home, their style, because I feel like in a nutshell, I think if we're all creating something, creating an amazing family, creating, we're meant to create. That's very divine gift. And then there's no time for comparing and criticizing and tearing down. I think we have so much tearing down in the world culture, but like more of that building up energy. And I do feel that that's one of the most powerful energy in the universe, right? Is this creativity. That's God's energy. Like it comes, it's fueled by love, right? When you really care. I think the reason you came up with the concept for the MatchNet podcast, because you really cared about, like, you basically, these conversations and these questions that were coming up from people as you were talking about and their journey to the blessing. What you did, what this podcast does, is it just like makes it accessible to so many more people, conversations and things and questions that come up, right? It's like amplifying it. I think you wouldn't have even had that concept if you hadn't had this deep sense of like, how do we do this? How can we support more people, right? And that care. And that's what, that's really the key, like true love, right? It's like that's what God's working through, um, especially when it comes to creating. So yeah, that's definitely my passion, like inspiring the creativity in others.
Mm.
Um, what's it called? An inspired innovator or something. I did some self thing like that where it was like that, like just like to inspire people.
I was talking with your husband, Alexander, when we were at your house. I don't
Yeah.
know if I told you this story about
Yeah. With his work,
his
right?
work. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't have to necessarily work in a job that you feel is like
Yeah,
meaningful or inspiring.
exactly.
Yeah, that was a big
Exactly.
aha for you.
Well, just for our listeners, I was talking to him about he was working at UPS, is that right?
Yeah, he still does. He
Oh,
transferred
no way.
here.
Okay.
It's a
He
very
was
different vibe.
at the
As UPS.
time he was a manager for packaging for UPS, right?
Yeah.
And I think we talked for like an hour about
Really?
Yeah,
on this.
about his, and you know him apparently, and he
Yes.
doesn't talk a lot, right? But he went off for an hour about his work on packaging you. This was on a weekend too, when he's supposed
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
chilling. It was like a Saturday, and this was at Yana's house in New Jersey. And then I was I was bored of the content, but I was so intrigued by how passionate he was about the work, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, this is what it looks like to care, just to have meaning, to create meaning in your work and not make the work itself, the
Right.
meaningful part.
Yeah.
Because
That's
for
true.
him, it's like, this is how I provide for my family. This is how I'm able to teach my employees, my team, how to work well, this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And so for me, it was an aha moment, mainly because I have made my whole like career path like ministry and meaningful work. And so I've
Right. Right. Right.
seen
Right.
that world of things, but I
Mhm.
also know that there can be tremendous amount of meaning in just on the surface, very mundane stuff because you put meaning into whatever you want.
Yeah.
Meaning.
Yeah. And that's so powerful because that's like culture. We talk about culture. And I learned, I didn't know this because UPS is such a big company, people know. But he was like, because of that, he was a favorite manager, many people. And when we left, they gave him this, the biggest card I've ever seen. Like,
Oh,
huge card, a party, right? They were so grateful. But also, we talked with someone else who'd worked at UPS for decades, and he was like, that's rare. Like, there's a bad, the management doesn't have a good rep in UPS, but he still remembers when he had a great manager. And so it's like just this ripple effect that, because I guess Alexander saw it too in that culture, he just felt like it doesn't have to be that way. And also being Norwegian and knowing a different job culture and work culture, he brought that. And it's pretty amazing, right? Like, yeah. People remember how you made them feel, right? They don't always remember all the other things, but that's that's an honor too, to be able to impact or shift culture
very cool.
just by putting meaning into it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we could go on forever about this stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to say, yeah, I think I didn't really properly give a shout out to Crescentia. I learned a lot from her. Like, gee
Oh
whiz,
man, same.
work. Yeah, same, right? I think we both worked really closely with her. I think I worked directly under her for the most of the time that I was with BFM in an office,
Yeah.
like in a physical office before
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole remote thing,
Before
right?
remote work. Yep.
And
Yeah.
man, she's got guts. She's a gutsy gal. Like how many times she would stand in a room with a bunch of other leaders, mostly dudes, and just be like, no, just just like she
I'm
just
visualizing it.
stands her ground. Like that's hard to do, especially when everyone is like 20 years older, 20 plus
Yeah.
years older than. I think she was like
Yeah.
26 or something when she started or earlier
Yeah.
with the BFM. And she just had to, and that's the eternal struggle in the BFM, as you know, is trying to maintain quality of our blessings and our blessed families
Yeah.
and also quantity, like to have both.
Yeah.
But the majority of our departments is very much focused on quantity, right? Isn't like numbers. And the BFM is more so focused on the quality of things. And so naturally, we kind of not butt heads, but have to counterbalance those two elements, right?
Yeah.
And she's just like comes in the room and she's just like, nope. How many times people have like asked her, he's like, hey, can you do this, Crescentia? And she's like, nope, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It's really
You,
cool.
so many times in the director role, I would like silently thank Crescentia and then tell her too. But I'm just like, wow, I'm so grateful she was before me. Like she just set the precedent for so many things. You're giving the great examples of that, and I'm just like, it was not easy. Like, and I come after Crescentia, I was just like this immense gratitude for her. And I want to give shout out to Karina too, because I feel it's really special that I've been able to like connect with Crescentia and then Karina too, helping on these kind of final changes with the website and things, and just seeing, I see this like long-term perspective, how God works through the different directors and the different times, and like these insights that she brings and sees that I'm just like, whoa, never thought of. It's really cool to experience that in Crescentia. And I see a lot of parallels with them because similar age. Karina started, I say that to her a lot. I'm like, yeah, Crescentia was similar age when she started, similar time in family life. And yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I actually called her Crescentia twice recently,
Oh, Karina.
Karina, on accident. And yeah,
Well, you worked a lot with Crescentia, so maybe yeah, you see similarities
they have a
playing out.
similar vibe in the
Yeah.
spirit. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Yeah, especially, folks, I think people that are listening this far are kind of
Yeah.
want
You
to,
guys are listening all the way into our
first of all, thank you always, but also, yeah, just go for it. If anything, I hope the podcast is here to inspire you to take action, not just inspire, because inspiration is often a addictive form of escapism.
right. That's a good point.
It really is. And this is what I shy away from and try not to do in the podcast, is just be another inspirational thing that people need in order to
Yeah.
go to the gym. People
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
in their David Goggins headphones, like, okay, now I'm ready. Now I can work out. It's like, no,
Yeah,
that's
they depend on that.
extrinsic, that's completely extrinsic motivation. But this one is like, I want people to be inspired to take action. That's it.
Yeah. I love it.
If they can do that, then that's the point of this podcast. So if you are, wanting to get matched, blessed, then take action. Just take a single action. Don't listen to any more podcast episodes. Just don't until you take action. And if you need more inspiration to take action, then go ahead and listen to more episodes. But make sure you're taking some kind of action
Yeah.
towards what you
Yeah.
really need people to do.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, what's an action? You do that in many of the episodes, right? An action they can take now based off of this. Um, you know, we're going on this like talking about in our heart and this desire for the blessing. And those of you as you're continuing to pursue um, your blessing journey, I think share with some about it. Like we've been going back and forth, we've been sharing what we're grateful for in this episode. But yeah, whoever comes to your mind first, like have a conversation with someone, share what you're grateful about, what you've been learning in your journey, and also share what your dream marriage and family, what you'd love to see, like make it real and concrete. Because a lot of times we just say, I want a happy family, but what does that mean? And and that's where I would take apart different words from true parents, like, okay, what does that really mean, right? Or things like that. But I also had to like talk about this dream, and it's very vulnerable, this dream or what I want in a family, what I'm looking for. And to trust that like God knows it, but also are you sharing it with someone else, right? Your team, your matching team, your support. Vocalize those things more because sometimes it's not so clear. We kind of subtly, I want this, but people aren't sure, right? Or how much effort you're putting in. And so, yeah, have a conversation, gratitude conversation, what you're grateful for in your journey, and also what you're excited about creating in your future marriage and family
Very
with
cool.
somebody that you would be happy to share with, and ask them to share the same back, give and take, right? Yeah. Have your own podcast episode, podcast style conversation, I think that's why podcasts are so popular, like conversations. It's nice. We get drawn in, we listen, we like give and take, right? So create that a little in your life if you're not already doing it. And if you are, then those are two little conversation prompts you can take.
Yeah. And also, it'd be great to hear from you guys about this episode. If you gained something, especially for this one, because it's the 100th one, let us know. You can reach out to us probably on Facebook, email. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm grateful for. I really, really appreciate every single person when they share something they gained from episode. It'll come up because that takes a lot to share. So grateful for those of you that
Oh, yeah.
send in feedback and thoughts. It really means a lot because you just feel like you must feel it, Benjy, more, but
Yep.
it's hard when it's like a virtual thing, right? You don't know. I try to picture how many listeners there are, right, in a room. It's a lot.
I know for a fact that there's a bunch of young dudes that are not going to say anything because they're too cool for school. And I'm calling out you guys right now.
At least talk with each other if you're not gonna at least have that
Because I'm like
conversation.
this. I'm the guy that'll never comment on videos or anything like that. So I understand. But
Yeah.
for me, guys, reach out to me and let me know if you listen this far and what you gained from it. All right. You know who I'm talking about. All right. Anything else? Wrap up, Yona?
No, just awesome. And yay for 100 episodes.
That's you are our happy place or whatever. Keep forgetting what
Happy thought. Happy thought.
your happy
Gotta
thought.
watch the movie Hook. That's an
Okay, okay.
old one, old movie out there. But yeah,
Yeah, the original.
Peter Pan. I mean, it's Peter Pan, but Hook is where I remember it because that was what made people fly was, and then they're like, they explained what their happy thought was, at different parts.
It's the same as having wings. Well, that's the Peter Pan version.
Oh, oh, it isn't. Yeah, yeah. The Disney Peter Pan.
Cartoon, yeah.
Yeah. Happy thoughts.
You can fly, you can fly. Yeah. All right, everyone. God bless you, y'all. God bless. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.